Hello, friends. Steve here. And I decided that I was going to do things a little bit different this time. So people who click to just get to be a part of the healing field, they'll be able to do that right away. So I'm going to set up the field to start with. And then while the field is open and we're working with the energetics, I'm going to talk a little bit about some things. And so others of you who just like to hear about maybe the energetics that I've been working with, you can stay around and listen to that. But the people who just want to do the healing field can just do that. Okay, I would suggest you state these things out loud. I connect to my deep self. And when you say these words out loud, just notice what you notice. Like if you notice kitties walking by in the background and staring in the windows. I connect to my higher self. I ground myself to the healing center of the planet. One kitty, two kitty. I open myself to the healing power of the One. Anything that's not useful to me now, I let go of. And if you want some assistance from seventh dimensional beings, the Hathors, who work with vibration and sound to assist healing, you can say, I choose to work with the Hathors. I'm going to just turn off the phone so we don't have to listen to any dingings or dongings. Okay. I choose, and when I say I choose to set up a healing field, I'll say for, and you can just say your name if you want to. I choose to set up a healing field for As the Brotherhood of Light, please be present. The Deva of Healing, please be present. Pan of Nature, please be present. Sisterhood of Light, please be present. All of our helpers and guides, please be present. The Saint Germain, please be present. Metatron, please be present. Kuan Yin, please be present. Master Mo, please be present. Master Kun Li, please be present. The Christ Consciousness, please be present. The holders of space, please be present. Sanat Kumara, please be present. Abrahamanad, please be present. Alcazar, please be present. The interdimensional being, please be present. Thoth and Ra, please be present. Deep Self, please be present. Higher Self, please be present. Our Soul Ray group, please be present. And I ask that we be placed in a field of protection while we do this work. I ask the Higher Self to take us through the portal of time to the event that would be of the highest good to release and integrate at this time. And I invite all souls to return to this event, to release and integrate the energy of the event for themselves. And I ask that they be placed in a field of protection while they do this work. Upon arrival at the event, I ask the Higher Self to assist us to release and integrate all energies of the event gently and easily, fully and completely, on all levels and through all space and time. Okay, the field is set up, and when we go back to these events, we do so on a soul level. So we ask the higher self to take us through the portal of time to the event that would be of the highest good, released and integrated this time. And we do that on a soul level. So we can follow it with our consciousness if we want to and see what it is we're going back to, but it's not necessary. And it can be triggering to see these events that we're resolving, less triggering to just be aware of our soul being aware of these events and releasing the energy of the event. And we're just supporting our soul. So at that point, we're aware of ourselves as a being who has a soul, and a soul who's clearing some energetics related to an unresolved experience of that soul, or of many souls, as the case often is. So if you're just wanting to be part of the healing field, and I'll just look and see. So that was 6 minutes and 40 seconds of setting up the field. So you can just click the pause button now and go about whichever you want to do. I'm going to continue to talk, and I'm going to tell some stories about the day that could be useful to you. They're about stress responses, trauma responses, and working with those. So if that's of interest to you, you can stay, and if otherwise you just want to work with the release of this one traumatic incident that we've gone back to, you can just do that. I'd suggest you come back later. Maybe, if you get to this point where you pause now, then 10 or 15 minutes later, click back on, which will probably be about the approximate time that I'll be finishing up the field. So yesterday, I had, go back a little bit further. A couple weeks ago, I had signed up to a free conference called the Collective Healing Conference that was being put on through Thomas Hubel. Thomas Hubel and a number of people were putting this on. And there were 45 people basically involved in trauma healing or the healing process, community healing, such as that. 45 people were going to be presenting, and it was free. You could watch a certain number of people every day, and then if you paid a certain amount, it was like $199 or something, you could pay and then be a part of some interactive kind of things as they went on, if you wanted to. But my intention was just to listen to the presenters, certain people that I have some familiarity with that I want to spend more time with, listening to them. Well, it didn't work out. I finally wrote to the Collective Health Conference people and said I hadn't got any, if I needed some pass or something to attend the conference. I hadn't received it, and they did some investigation and said that I had put it in a junk category. So anything I was getting was just being sent to junk. So I had to go through I had to jump through some hoops, junk through some hoops to get to the conference, and it started yesterday, and I wasn't able to get through. I finally re-signed up for it on a different email of mine, and that allowed me to get through, and I was able to watch one of the videos that I wanted to watch. And this video was an interview with Stephen Porges. And Stephen Porges is an initial developer of something called the polyvagal theory. And there's lots that he's spoken about this on YouTube. So if you want to listen to him, and you could probably find an interview with Thomas Hubel and him, because I think he's maybe presented at last year's conference as well. But the polyvagal theory is basically about how to assist people to come out of a constant state of panic and anxiety through various means, some of them being through touch, some of them being through the sound of a person's voice, some of them being through sounds played that will take one into a deep state of relaxation. But how useful it is when doing therapeutic processes or dealing with trauma, how useful it is to be in a receptive state and not have a kitty peering at you through the window, but now it's looking at something else. But how to be in a state of safety, and how there's a physiological response when we feel safe. So we may feel safe based on someone's voice tone, or based on the cadence of their speech. So we feel safer when somebody's talking slower. So if somebody talks really fast at us, we have a tendency to react to it and back away. Tendency. And so the talk was really useful. I watched it. It was 50 minutes maybe. And I found it really useful. And I'm glad I was able to get on. But it was really helping me to look at a response I had had this morning, where I walked into a room where another person was, and they weren't expecting me to walk into the room for whatever reason. And it startled them, and they went into a fight or flight response, the body, almost like from childhood. And their going into a fight or flight triggered a fight or flight response in me. And I went into a fight or flight, and all of a sudden I realized I'm in this. And the person was probably cleared it pretty quickly for themselves, but it didn't clear in me. So I had to go off and kind of work with this energy, which turned out to be perfect, related to the video that I was going to be watching later. But when I was in that fight or flight response, I had plans for today. Not extensive plans, but I'd already done my breath work and my yoga early in the morning. So this triggering occurred an hour or two later. And I went from being in a really mellow, kind of chill state from the yoga and the breath exercises to being like, instant panic. And I'm like, okay. And it was a nice triggering, so it was so much that I couldn't just go, oh, and let it go. It was deep. And so I was like in it. But I was aware I was in it, which is always helpful. It's helpful to understand these processes so that when we go in them, even if we can't instantly resolve it, we maybe have some tools to resolve it without, blaming the horrid state that we're experiencing on someone for having jumped in front of us. Anyway, one of the projects I had was painting a piece of furniture that I had taken two pieces of furniture and created one table out of these two pieces of furniture, and I was going to paint it all one color. I'll even say, I said, the person wanted it painted black, so I was going to paint it black. And at first I was thinking that it would be better for me if I painted it indoors, because the kind of the laundry room is a good, decent workspace for me, and I could have painted it there and then left it to dry, and it would have dried faster because it's warmer in the laundry room than it is outside currently. Quite chilly and windy and whatever, Pacific Northwest weather. But as I went through it, and I was already in this kind of fight or flight energy that I was still working with, I made the decision it would be a much wiser thing to use black paint outdoors. Turned out to be a very wise choice on my part. So I wasn't triggered enough that I was just making bad choices. I was triggered and aware I was triggered, and knowing I need to slow everything down if I wanted to make good choices. Because typically when we go into fight or flight, we go into fast reactive mode, and that's when we start making bad choices and dropping things and knocking things over and all that kind of stuff. So I'm aware of this. I lived enough years. I'd say I lived 60 years in somewhat perpetual fight or flight. So I was fairly much in fight or flight all the time, and then I'd go in higher states of fight or flight. But in around 2011, I'd say, yeah, so I would have been 60 years old. In 2011, I came out of fight or flight. I'd been working on it, but I came out of fight or flight kind of for good. I mean, I just, on occasions, I would go into it, but it wasn't a running thing. And my mental state got kind of quieter and quieter and quieter. I'm fairly high energy, high activity, so I never got kind of like sit around and chill a lot, but I just wasn't panicky. But I was able to just change my breath, my breathing pattern. One of the keys in the polyvagal theory to come out of fight or flight is to double the time you spend in expiration from the time you spent in inspiration. So if you're inspiring, you're taking an inhalation, and you count it as you breathe in, and you maybe go to 6 or maybe go to 8. Then when you exhale, you want to go to 12 or 16 in terms of the amount of time you take to exhale. You want it to be twice the time it takes you to inhale. What this does is signal to the brain that everything's okay. So you can just control your state through your breath. The yogis knew this by doing it, so they had a lot of experience with it. And there's someone named Wim Hof, I think his name is Wim Hof, who also knows how you can control your state through breath, and also has a lot of ideas, experiences that are ideas about how you can control your immune function. And so anyway, if you ever want to, I haven't done much checking in, but I know quite a few people who use the Wim Hof method of breathing and do a lot of other things. One of my friends who's a professional disc golfer really resolved Lyme's disease using Wim Hof as one of his main things. So when we do set up a healing field, which I do fairly frequently. So, in this past 5 or 6 days, this is probably the fourth healing field I've set up. And I've gotten a lot of good feedback from people that it's been very helpful for them. So I basically do it on an intuitive sort of way. If I have a real strong feeling that I should set up a field, then I just do, and I typically will record it when I set it up. It's usually if there's something in the world field that's really triggered, then that's a good time to set up a healing field. Now, you can use any of the times I've set up a healing field and just go back to that video, and it will take you back to whatever events in the highest good for you to release and integrate at this time. So you don't have to have a new one. Well, any one of these ones, any one over the last few days, you just go. This one will be kind of useful because I actually set up the healing field as the first part of the video, so you didn't have to sit through 10, 15, 20 minutes of me doing this before the field was set up. So I'll probably, if it works out well, I'll probably do it that way in the future. Just the people who just want to be part of the healing fields being set up and then clear the energy of it, that'll work out fine. And then those who want to just hear my process that some find helpful, then those can do that. I would say that even when I set up the healing field, I could still feel some remnants of that panicky energy. And with this collective healing conference going on, started yesterday and it goes through October 1st. So it's 8 days of collective healing of trauma. So I set up the World Healing Field initially in the end of January of 2020. I was asked if I would set up a healing field for the world, and so I did. And so others have helped me ground the energy of disturbance in the field around the world for the past 4.5 years, and we continue to ground the disturbance. Sometimes there's more disturbance in the field. Sometimes you'll notice it, that you're just reacting to something but don't necessarily know what. Oftentimes it's just the energies that are releasing in the field. And so during this 8-day period of time where this healing conference is going on, this is a really excellent time to tap in to your own individual healing and the effect it has on the world. And I've noticed just setting up the healing field today, just talking about the incident from earlier, I felt the energetics, just a lot of them, just release and integrate, and I came into a more calm place. You may have as well. Or just when I was describing and doing the breathing, just doing that breathing can take us into a more calm place, in a different state in the nerve system. And it used to be that the division in the nerve system was the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, or nerve system, and also the autonomic nerve system. The polyneural theory, is an expansion, and it goes into the part of the vagus nerve when you're overstimulated and in fight or flight, or the part of the vagus nerve when you're in a meditative state and calm and everything feels good. And how to find those states. And mostly the most useful state is calm. and present and open and safe. That's the best state for your creativity, for your organizational abilities, for your not knocking things off tables as often. So I'm going to be buying, Stephen Porges has a new book, and you can find out, I wrote it down what it was, possibly polyvagal practices, something like that. He mentions in the video, there's 2 books, one with his son Seth, which might be polyvagal theory, and then the other one is just his book that he tries to go into more detail about the polyvagal theory, and Kitty's wanting the poly come inside theory. So we'll finish this off so people can click back on who have been gone. When you click back on, I'm going to say welcome back. And now we're going to complete the healing field. And so I asked the interdimensional being, I asked Thoth and Ra, the deep self, the higher self, and our soul ray group to assist all the souls that had returned to the event to combine with that part of their soul that had remained at the event and bring that combined soul back into their body in present time with all of its wisdom, power, and clarity. I would ask all of those souls to ground themselves into the healing center of the earth and open up a portal for the delivery of the new energies into the earth at this time. And I would ask that these new energies be brought in. And I would ask that they be activated. And I express my appreciation for your participation in healing the world through healing yourself. And now must go.